Hi, my name is Bernard Williams. I'm Chief of Pittsfield Fire Department. I've been for the last 40 odd years. We have, at the present time, 3 tanker pumpers. We have one that's 1,000 gallon a minute pump with 1,000 gallons of water. That's 1986. We have a 2003 1,500 gallon a minute with 1,000 gallons of water. And we have a 2017 it's 1,500 gallons a minute with 1,000 gallons of water. We have what we call our rescue. It's 350 gallons of water and 350 gallon a minute pump, and has our rescue tools on it. The reason we run a tank on this is there's a requirement to have a hose anytime you're cutting on a vehicle. And this way we can run a smaller vehicle in a good many cases than one of these big engines. That doesn't necessarily mean you won't see 2 vehicles at an accident scene, depending on where we are, what the circumstances are. Our engine 4 gives us a backup to that system as far as the hydraulic pumps and hoses go. We have one set of tools. We have 2 set up for pumps. It's also used. The rescue is also used for grass fires and other minor calls. Over the last several years, we've averaged just over 200 calls a year. We do not do EMS. We do get called to assist the ambulance from time to time with calls, heavy patients in places that are hard to get out. For example, a patient that's on the 2nd floor, the spiral staircase to bring them down gets a little tough for 2 people. So we do minor EMS, but we don't answer EMS calls as a general rule. We've gotten away from pumping cellars because of the danger to people. The only way we will pump a cellar now is if you have Central Maine come and pull the meter, so we know there's no electricity in the cellar. Too many cases of firefighters being killed, going downstairs. An extension cord plugged in, laying on the floor in a foot of water, and they touch an iron pipe and it's all over. So basically at this point we've not done a cellar pump in a long time. We have fortunately reduced the number of chimney fires that we have, which is makes everybody happy, the homeowner and us. Chimneys are one of the places that we get people hurt because chimneys are not well maintained, roofs are not maintained. You step up onto a roof and the shingles break out from under you and you fall. It's not a good thing. We have, at the present time, we are about 90% what's known as operations level for hazmat, which means that with the proper equipment we can go in and do decon of people who have been exposed to something that's hazardous. We are back up for work with Skowhegan, who has the main decon team for this area. Maine now has 5 teams, where we used to have 8. The actual hazmat team itself is out of Waterville Fire. There is a decon team out of Augusta and one out of Skowhegan. We would back them up if they need, because they have the equipment in a trailer. We have very little equipment because it is so expensive to maintain for the number of calls that we get. We also must maintain confined space certification because of the water and sewer district. When they go into a hole, we have to be prepared in case something happens to them, either from an injury down there or from some kind of an atmospheric problem that takes them down. So we have to maintain that. Both of those require retraining each year. And at this point, we usually do this in the end of July, 1st of August, to get this out of the way during warm weather. We are looking at doing more training with the Skowhegan team. They have someone over there who's they have a new full-time member over there who's taken over the team, and he wants to come over with a trailer and spend some training time with us, and we're kind of looking forward to that, to get to use the equipment. in the case of hazmat, other than here in town, we most likely would be called to go to the hospital to help them set up their decon tent up there and to actually do the decon. There's, again, they have a problem keeping people on staff that are trained because of the turnover and the fact that they would have to call people in, and I don't, you know, people don't live right next door like they used to. At this point in history, we do not have a ladder truck. We looked at buying one and then opted to go with another engine. Ladder trucks are expensive to buy, they're expensive to maintain, and they're expensive to train on because you have to train on them. It's an art to knowing where to set this and how to get it up and around wires and trees and such. We're still looking at a future purchase of that. And one of the other problems we have is that we're running, this building was built in 1975, and the new trucks are getting bigger and bigger, and unfortunately it's hard to expand the size of a building. One of the things I forgot to mention was the fact that we have a rescue raft, a rescue boat. We're in the process of obtaining a new motor. This one has outlived its usefulness. Apparently, one cylinder that's bad in it, and it's because of the age, it's not really feasible to fix it. In today's market, when I started, you get issued a rubber coat, boots that come clear to your crotch, and the first helmet I had was an aluminum helmet. Stop and think about that. An aluminum helmet, not much of a conductor if you run into a live wire. That only lasted a couple of years, and somebody come through, that probably wasn't the best stuff to make helmets out of. In today's market, all our stuff has to meet NFPA, the National Fire Protection Association. It has to be tested by them and has to have a tag in it that says it meets the standard. Everything we buy has to meet the standard that's in force at the time we buy it. So these standards are revised depending on which ones, but most of them are revised every 3 to 5 years. Sometimes not much difference in them, other times big changes. We can continue to use the gear that we have, but when we replace it, it must be purchased according to meet the new standard. And as you can imagine, every time there's a new standard, the price goes down. In today's market, coats, boots, pants, a helmet, a hood, gloves will set you back upward, depending on what you buy, anywhere from around $1,600, $1,700, which in my opinion is not worth buying, to $5,000 or better, which we don't need. So we buy in the middle somewhere. Mostly coats and pants that we buy now are around $1,800 a set. The helmets are $250, boots are, which used to be $50 a pair, are now close to $200. We have just bought new hoods that are supposed to be the latest and greatest thing going. To keep particles, one of the problems with is that the particles that in the air is what they think are giving a lot of guys cancer. These hoods supposedly will filter out 95% of those, and they're over $100 a piece. So we do run an AED. If we get a call for somebody down, somebody grabs that before they go. And we have our own cascade system with a compressor to fill our air bottles, which is very handy. We used to have to go for a while we went to Brewer, another while we went to Winslow, neither of which is real convenient. We got a grant to buy both the compressor and the setup, so we now can fill our own, and if we have someone come in as a mutual aid and they're low on air, we can fill them before they go home. We do not fill scuba tanks. We're not by law allowed to do that. We're not licensed for that. We have to have a license from DHHS to do our own and anybody else in the fire department, we'd have to have a different license, although it's the same air, same quality air. We have to have a different license if we're going to do scuba. To fight a fire inside a building, there's a minimum of 80 hours required of training, both classroom and hands-on. And you have to be able to, at the end of the day, demonstrate that, yeah, I know how to put on my gear and my SCBA. I have to know how to climb this ladder and lock in so I don't fall off. Now, we're getting away from that because we're going with ladder belts and hooks. Because a lot of people have trouble with that. You know, for years I couldn't lock in. My knees don't bend well enough to go two directions when I'm on that ladder. Plus, it's quicker, and in my opinion, safer than getting locked into that ladder. If you want to get what's known as Firefighter 1 and 2 with the National Pro Board certification, which is run through the college in South Portland, that is about 360 hours. Plus, I don't know how many hours on the computer that you have to do between classes. Is it a good program? I have mixed feelings about it. It gives you the basics. When you come out of that class, if that's all you ever did, you know nothing about firefighting because you've never seen a real, room and content fire where the temperature gets to 1800 degrees quickly in today's market. Flashover, which is when everything in the room catches fire because it's at the right temperature, used to 20 years ago and before, 20 to 25 minutes, which gave you some time to work with. Now it's 3 to 5. So if you're in a building that really gets a fire going in it, in today's world, you don't have much time to get out. You can't be standing around looking for the cat or your pocketbook. You need to get out the door because that thing is going to get hot and it's going to go bang.
That's building materials.
Well, it's all, everything, your couch has got stuff that burns real well and, it's just everything in that building. And it puts out a lot of stuff that'll, into the air, that'll kill you, a lot of compounds. One of the things that I just read the other day is they're doing a lot of testing. We always tell people get on the ground. That may not be the best place to be in today's market. It may be in a crouched position between the floor and up here. Because a lot of the stuff that'll knock you down is heavier than air, so it goes down here. So that may not be. One of the things that's being taught right now and being pushed for the firefighters to go in and do a rescue, if you're in and all there is smoke in here, no fire, do it standing up. Walk. You can cover this room in a couple of minutes where it'll take you 15 minutes if you're on your hands and knees. And you probably can see a lot more because you're not worried about, you still got to sound the floor, do those things to keep yourself safe, but there's no easy answer in today's market. And training, like I say, the hazmat training that we do, everybody has to have an awareness that's in the fire service, which is 4 to 6 hours depending on how much you want to get into it. And then to do the operations level, which is the decon, people who have been contaminated, it depends, again, minimum of 24 hours up to 40 hours, depending on who you believe. We try to do it in about 20 hours, which, because they've changed, it no longer says you have to have X number of hours. It says you have to cover the content and people have to be able to demonstrate their proficiency. So if you can do it in 20 hours, and that's about what we try to do for new people. Then we do, again, every year we have to do a recertification, and we try to do that as a drill, not a classroom. Classroom gets old in a hurry. You do the drill, people get a chance to use what they've been taught. We pick different people to be the incident commander so that, I'm not always the incident commander, or a dean or somebody may look at you and say, okay, it's your turn to be incident commander. Oh, now what do I do? I've got all the answers when somebody else is in charge, but now it's my turn. Those answers aren't quite so clear, but that we don't know. You know, if we had a call right now, I don't know how many people I'm gonna get. And that's one of the things that full-time firefighters in big cities sometimes have a hard job grasping is when their engine goes out the door, depending on their manning, but most places won't run with less than 3 people. They've got a driver, an officer, and a firefighter. Most of them are running with 4 people. So if you got 4 people, that guy that sits behind the officer has got a job to do, and there's always somebody back there. If they don't have 4 people, that engine's out of service. The guy behind the driver has got a job to do, and he does that every time they go out the door because that's where he sits every time. I don't have that luxury here, nor does any volunteer fire department. We can't operate today without mutual aid. Because if we had a fire right now of any size, a structure fire, for example, we would have to call, I'd call Detroit, depending on which side of town it's on. But if it's out in West Pittsfield, I'd have Canaan and Heartland coming. Probably Newport is back up for here. You might even have St. Albans coming with their tank. We just, you know, and then sometimes you only get, you know, they had that big house fire in Skowhegan, what, a month and a half ago or so? There were, I counted 21 apparatuses on the fire ground up there, and I don't think there was 50 firefighters there. So it's a problem all over, not just Pittsfield, but everywhere has got the same problem. You know, people work out of town, they work at jobs where they either can't leave because of something they're doing or because their boss won't let them. And I understand from an employer's point of view, these trash fires we have, I call them, they're not trash, but if we have a dumpster fire, for example, you know, a couple of guys can go take care of it. Grass fire, depending on where it is, 2 or 3 guys can take care of that. Car accident, again, depending, we get called to car accidents that are nothing. We get called other ones that, you know, we had one out on the interstate this winter. When we got there, there was a woman under the van. We didn't know that en route. It was, we knew it had flipped over, but we didn't know there was somebody under it.
That one actually kind of freaked me out.
But there's, you know, you never know when you go to, you know, we get a call car fire on the interstate, we get there and there's no car there. And if there is a guy sitting there, you know, using his computer beside the road and it's exhaust in the wintertime. It would be very helpful, just take 10 seconds and check and see. You know, probably if you've got smoke or steam coming out of the back of a car, it's not a car fire. It doesn't usually start back there unless it's a tire, and that's not very common on cars. Now on big trucks, yeah. But, you know, we get called, somebody blows a radiator hose, we get called. Well, you know, 2 guys can handle a car fire pretty much. Also, I read something the other day, these newest cars coming out right now have 300 pounds, up to 300 pounds of flammable metal in them.
What?
Magnesium, lithium, all of which burns. One of these battery-powered cars, if the battery packs in there catch fire, they're estimating it takes an excess of 3,000 gallons of water to put that out by the time you can cool that down enough so it doesn't run away and keep producing electricity and keep the fire, you know, keep the lithium burning. It's a whole different world out there than it was even 10 years ago.